My height was barely enough to reach the handle of the upper cabinet, but I was already 2 heads taller than the others. I was probably 7 or 8 years old then. My classmates Lyoka, Yura, and I often wandered around the outskirts of town, climbed garages and trees near the highway, and made up silly games. I don't know where our parents were looking. Probably they didn't care where we were or what we were doing. It's hard to even imagine now that 3 boys would roam wherever they pleased and only come home in the evening. I remember how Yurka suggested exploring a new place, going a little further than usual. My chubby friend sat on a fallen tree, poking the ground with a stick. Boring, Lyoka said drawlingly. Let's go to the water pump and drink some water, I suggested. Yura dropped the stick to the side and jumped to his feet. I know, let's go there. He pointed somewhere into the field. Where there? And what for? Lyoka asked grumpily. Mom said there's a spring there. We could check it out and drink from it. The idea was doubtful, but we went looking for water. The sun was hiding behind heavy clouds, and the air was thick with heat. The field turned out to be bigger than it looked from afar. We walked along a path for about half an hour and were sweating. I was only thinking about how thirsty I was. Quiet, Yura said. Do you hear that? I focused on the sounds. Nearby, water was splashing. There's the spring, Lyoka shouted, and we ran off the path into the bushes. The icy water filled my throat. We greedily gulped water, scooping it up with our hands. I washed my face and neck. It was less hot now. Behind us, a rumble was heard, then another. The sky was torn by thunder. It's going to pour now, I said. Let's hurry back to town. We won't make it, Lyoka replied. I felt a heavy drop fall on my t-shirt, then another on my head, then on my arm. The rain poured down in sheets. We ran back to the path. The sky turned black. It seemed like night outside, though it wasn't even dinner time yet. Looks like the rain will last a while, said the soaking wet Lyoka. But since we were already wet, why hurry? Yura raised his hands and made some dance moves. I laughed, but at another thunderclap, my heart sank. Maybe we should go home after all. Rustling, rustling, rustling. Lyoka started singing a silly song he made up about me. I'm not scared, I protested. Just cold. My classmates noticed a tree standing in the middle of the field. It seemed like a white oak, or maybe something else. Hard to tell from such a distance. They say lightning strikes the tallest object, Yura said. Ruslan, you hear that? Better sit down. Lyoka laughed. Lightning streaked across the dark sky. We were dying to see if the lightning would hit that lonely tree or not. The wind bent the tall rye towards the ground. Clumps of mud stuck to my feet and sandals. Streams of water lashed my clothes and hair. We counted the seconds between the flash of lightning and the loud thunderclap. Wow, I said. Did you hear that? It sounded like it hit really close. I didn't even finish counting to 7. You're counting too slowly, Yura replied. I got to 9, and I got 12, boasted Lyoka. You shouldn't rush either, I argued. Remember how Tatiana Vasilyevna taught us? You have to insert the letter, and between the numbers, then it's right. Yeah, and it seems like you counted not and, but and since you got 6. Yura wrung water out of his t-shirt. It's time to go home, I reminded them. Another thunderclap struck. I looked closely at the tree. Missed again. I don't know what we were hoping for. The tree had grown there 4 decades, survived hundreds of rainy days. Why would it suddenly shatter to splinters from a strike just to entertain us? Then my eyes caught some figure on the very edge of the field. Just a dark, motionless dot. Seemed like a person. I didn't think much, just noticed it. Suddenly the thunder flashed again, and I seemed to see the figure instantly move from the edge of the field. Now it was standing closer. I could make out that the dot had legs and arms, so it was a person, but it couldn't have jumped like a locust, covering a big distance in a second. I started watching the dot, waiting for it to move again. The guys were chatting, ignoring me. Thunder rumbled, and the dark spot moved 30 steps at once. I immediately understood what was going on. It only moved when there was thunder. Now I could see a head, arms, a a woman's figure in a long skirt, and it seemed like she was holding something like a staff. I shouted to my friends, guys, look there. Do you see the old woman? Lyoka and Yurka ran to me. So what? One of them asked. Look, lightning is about to strike. And I didn't finish talking. Lightning flashed over the field. I wanted to keep watching, but the woman was as fast as lightning. She moved another 30 steps. Now I could see a pale spot of the face and a fold on the long dark skirt. It was definitely a woman with a long staff in her hand. How did she run so fast? Yorick asked nervously. We watched without looking away, waiting for the next thunderclap. And again thunder, and the dark figure moved to the middle of the field. It was a stooped old woman. She stood still, leaning on her staff. Thunder. Now she was even closer. Rainwater ran in streams off her soaked clothes. Her mouth was open and twisted. No pupils visible in her eyes. It's a ghost, Lyoka shouted. He grabbed me hard by the shoulder. I didn't know where to run. My knees trembled with fear. Mom, Yura twitched. And again thunder. Now the old woman was close enough to see her features. Terrible features. Her mouth was black like a fly's nest. Wrinkled blue face. Pale eyes without visible pupils. A few grey strands on a bald head. She held a burnt tool handle in her hand. With each lightning strike, she came closer. And again thunder. Run away. I yelled, and we fled, racing to the city, overtaking each other. By then, the rain had lessened and the thunder quieted. I looked back, afraid the old woman was still following us. My heart pounded anxiously. I wanted to get home to my parents quickly. It was always calmer with them nearby. There were deep puddles in the city. The wet t-shirt made my body shiver from the cold. The light in the apartment windows came on. Lyoka and I said goodbye to Yura and walked alone down Twilight Street. I'm probably going to get it from my mom, I sighed sadly, for wandering around wet until evening. If I get sick, she'll kill me. Just say we were sitting at Yurka's house and you just got wet, Lyoka suggested. Don't tell her where we really went or what we saw. That's what I did. Luckily, Mom didn't check those stories. That night I had trouble sleeping. I remembered the day. It seemed frightening and at the same time unreal. The drops became less frequent. The bad weather calmed. Along with nature, I fell asleep. But for many years after, I was afraid of thunder. I ran to my parents' bed at night and begged to sleep with them. I never walked in the rain again. Every time thunder rolled, my heart seemed to stop for a moment. By the end of that summer, our family moved to another city because of my father's work. New school, new friends, a completely different life. Starting from scratch. In the chaos, the scary memories faded. Time passed. Teenage years came. I finally let go of childhood fears, forgot all the nonsense, and became a severe skeptic. And I remained that way for many years. Since then, I have grown a lot in every sense. I'm now 1.9 meters tall. The guy who bumps his head on light fixtures. After school, I entered Culinary Academy. Yeah, Mom almost went crazy when I decided to become a cook. Did I understand it? Hardly. I just liked tasty food, the aesthetics of haute cuisine. And I didn't fully understand why I ended up here. But I had genuine interest and even excitement. I'd already forgotten about school friends and my small hometown. I made friends with classmates. We were always inventing something, experimenting. We were just beginner artists in the art of cooking. In the academy walls, I met a wonderful girl, Vera. She was a couple of years younger. We met at the stairs. A student rushed into me and fell. I didn't even flinch. I looked down from my height to her tiny face and smiled. Since then, we got closer. We walked in parks, went to cafes, enjoyed good food together. Vera baked wonderful pastries and fed me. I even gained a few kilos. Although I always thought a lanky guy like me couldn't gain weight, now my sides betrayed me, spilling over my waistband. One didn't want to be overweight, so I started walking every evening, sometimes alone, sometimes with Vera. With Vera, hoping to zip up my jeans again. Okay, that's just a silly joke. Of course, I meant my girlfriend. Vera was average height, maybe about 1.6 meters, which made walking together awkward. She always looked up while I bent down to hear her quiet voice. Maybe it was a rainy time. We got soaked countless times by sudden cloudbursts. Vera splashed in puddles in sandals. I thought it was high time to get used to carrying an umbrella. We wandered to the edge of town. Ahead was only a wide riverbank, a green landscape, where there was nothing to do in such bad weather. It was time to turn back. The rain had only grown stronger. The clouds rumbled and I pulled Vera by the hand. She said, "Well, let's stand under those trees for a bit, maybe it'll calm down." We stood there, watching the leaden clouds, and I didn't even think to recall that old childhood memory. Those events lay somewhere deep inside me, but then lightning flashed, thunder rolled across the sky, and a chilling mirage appeared before my eyes. It resembled a childhood dream brought back to life from the depths of memory. Down by the riverbank appeared a dark figure, the same black blot I'd seen in my childhood vision. It stood motionless against the restless current. I stared at it, my focus entirely consumed. I didn't even hear my girlfriend anymore. Wow, that was a blast. Do you think it might hit us? Thunder struck again. The creature moved. It wasn't a random person. It was the same shadow, the hunched figure, wearing a long skirt, holding a staff. Madness. Vera fell silent. I squeezed her hand. My heart pounded against my ribs, my breath caught. Another heart-rending flash of thunder struck my eyes. The figure shifted further up the bank. I could now make out a bluish face, an open, distorted mouth, grey, wet wisps of hair. Damn it, it was the same old woman. Impossible. Ruslan. Did you see that? Vera pointed at that thing, trembling. She was there, now she's there. Another thunderclap. The old woman with the charred staff had moved again, vanished from one place, reappeared in another. That was her face, a dead face, frozen in pain and terror. A black, toothless mouth, eyes with absent pupils. Am I hallucinating? Vera asked, horror in her voice. I broke free from the stupor and replied, "No, you're not hallucinating. Let's run right now." We ran. I pulled her along. Her sandals nearly flew off her feet. She was terrified not just of what she'd seen, but of my fear. She probably thought, if he a tough guy is scared, then something's really wrong. Finally we reached a busy street and collapsed onto a wet bench to catch our breath. The rain had stopped, but the sky still rumbled. The tremor of it resonated through our bodies. Vera laid her hand on my shoulder. "Ruslan." I snapped out of my mind for a moment. She said softly, "Did you really get that scared? We saw some old woman, right? The thing is, you've seen her before," I admitted. "When?" "Back when I was a kid." "And what was it?" She probed gently. Old memories flashed behind my eyes, and for the first time, I spoke of them aloud. My classmates and I saw that old woman in a field. It was during a thunderstorm too. She'd moved from place to place with each lightning strike. "And what happened after?" she continued. I shook my head. "Nothing. We just saw her. And that was it." Vera smiled as if it were nothing. I nodded back. I thought it was a false memory from childhood, I confessed. Kids can imagine anything. Now I realize it was real. Mystical, she whispered. "Did anything bad ever happen to you after that? Could it be a sign?" I shrugged thoughtfully. "Not that I can think of." "Then why be afraid?" Vera smiled again. I returned her smile warily. She was light-hearted. She, and like me, recovered quickly from shock. But I needed time. I didn't understand why. As an adult, I'd grown afraid of storms again. The next day, rain and lightning returned. I sat at home, curtains drawn, thoughts consumed by that old woman. Who was she, really? A witch in old-fashioned clothes, with a charred staff. As a child, I thought she was a ghost. Maybe she was. A woman killed in a field by lightning, carrying a scythe on her shoulder. Lightning struck the blade, and she died. That's how mystics might put it. A lost spirit tied to this world, appearing whenever the weather turns foul. Or perhaps she was just a suffering soul. Maybe there's nothing to fear. The following morning, the cursed rain returned. I was slowly recovering from the shock, until I noticed that Vera hadn't replied to any of my messages. I tried calling, but she didn't answer or pick up. Anxiety crept in. I decided to take a shower, brush my teeth, and check on her in person. She lived nearby, and just as I stepped into the bathroom, the phone rang. It wasn't her, it was her friend Christina. I answered. Hello, Ruslan. Where is Vera? I can't reach her. I'm so worried. My throat clenched. I couldn't call her myself either. I did my best. I threw clothes on and ran through the rain toward her apartment. Christina was already pounding at her front door on the second floor. Vera, please open up. I dialed her number. Through the door came muffled music. Her phone must be inside, I thought, voice trembling. That's not like her, I whispered. Christina demanded, call the police. The officers showed up. They hesitated, saying there was no reason to break down the door, but finally agreed and called a locksmith. He opened the flat in 2 minutes. Christina and I were told to wait in the hallway, but I couldn't stand still, followed the officers inside. In Vera's single room, curtains billowed from an open window. Rain pounded past, reckless on the wind. I didn't notice Vera at first, then I saw a lifeless form on the floor by the coffee table. Vera, I tried to move toward her, but a sergeant caught my hand. What's wrong with her? I whispered. She's dead, the officer said. I'd known, I just couldn't accept it. Her beautiful face was ruined by death. I'll never forget it like this. The preliminary investigation said she died from a lightning strike, but I was convinced that old woman had murdered her. I screamed it, but nobody heard. They thought grief had driven me mad. Needless to say, I wouldn't have revealed to anyone the tale of that horrible old woman during a thunderstorm if I'd been sane. The days turned black with morning. I didn't know how to live anymore. I wandered aimlessly in and around the city, saw no future. Then one evening, rain tapped against my window. Lightning shot across the sky. My dark room lit briefly with an electric blue glow. I got up, drew the curtains, and looked outside. The courtyard was drenched by a heavy downpour. Empty, thunder, and then, in the far end there she was again. That terrifying, familiar shape, staff in hand. Now she had come for me. My heart pounded, but my mind detached from fear. I opened the window, and fresh rain-scented air poured in. Another jagged lightning fork lit up the darkness. She stood still by the garbage bins, still far away. I thought Vera might have stood at her window that final night, too curious, frightened. Thunder rolled again. The old woman was now under my window. She looked up at me. I couldn't bear that terrifying face and turned away. One more flash and maybe she'd be gone. Or maybe not. The rain quietly fall. The storm ended. I felt a wave of relief. The momentary brush with death sobered me up. It seemed I hadn't lost all will to live. I needed to pull myself together, wake up in the mornings, stop lying in bed staring at the ceiling all day. Vera wouldn't have wanted me to sink into an ending depression. I never saw that awful old woman again that year. The next summer was unusually hot, no storms. But this June, rains returned, flooding the city. The ache of loss is still with me. There hasn't been a day whenever I think of Vera. No one else has ever taken her place. I don't know why I chose to return to my roots. It was spontaneous. I just took a train ticket and traveled to my hometown on a weekend. I hadn't spoken to any of my childhood friends in years. Everything had changed. Chain stores, new cafes, smoother roads. I walked through the familiar streets, trying to remember where my old friends lived. Then I heard a voice. Ruslan, is that you? I didn't recognize him at first, then I realized it was Dimka, my childhood neighbor. We shook hands. Long time no see, so good to see you. You back in town? No, I answered softly. Visiting family? No. He hesitated, then said, want to meet up with the old classmates. We didn't plan anything, just wanted to find them. If they're still around. He nodded. Sure. Say, do you remember Lyoshka Kark and Yurka Mastakov? I caught my breath. I'd love to see them. Dimka shook his head. There. Well, they're in the cemetery. I wasn't surprised. That response made sense to me. Hecking lightning struck them both as kids, Dimka said grimly. You lived your life and didn't even know. I stayed silent. He continued. I remember it like it was yesterday, a rainy summer. Just like now. They always roamed the fields and lightning got them both. We found their charred bodies outside town. Everyone was talking about it, even in the newspaper. It lived years and didn't know them in any other state. That old woman took them that year I moved away with my family. Maybe she didn't find me back then, I thought. Now she has. It's warm again, but rainstorms are promised. I don't know if I'm destined to survive this summer.